All right, let's be honest for a second. Have you ever found yourself saying yes to something when deep down you were just screaming no on the inside? Yeah, we've all been there. Today, we're going to dive into the absolutely essential skill of setting personal boundaries. Using some great insights from the Mayo Clinic and Eki Shine, we'll see how mastering the art of saying no can seriously reduce your stress and help you build way stronger, healthier relationships. So, let's get into it. So, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll unpack the problem, that hidden stress that comes from being just a little too agreeable. Then, we'll build up a complete toolkit covering everything from finding your own assertive voice to communicating clearly, and yeah, even how to handle it when people push back. Okay, first up, let's talk about the real cost of always saying yes. You know, that simple little word can have some surprisingly big negative effects on our well-being. So just take a second and think about this for yourself. Does this feel familiar? Taking on way too much, agreeing to things you just don't have the time or energy for. If that hits home, you are definitely not alone, and it's probably taking a bigger toll on you than you realize. And this is where it gets real. This is the internal conflict that passive behavior creates. According to the Mayo Clinic, when we consistently just don't stand up for our own needs, that feeling doesn't just disappear. Nope, it festers. It turns into stress, resentment, even this simmering anger. We can start to feel like a victim in our own lives and begin to doubt our own judgment. This, right here, is the true cost of not being able to say no.
So what do we do about it? How do we fix this? Well, the key is learning to be assertive. Let's really dig into what that means because it's a core skill that can genuinely change how you interact with the world around you. So what is assertiveness really? Well, the Mayo Clinic defines it as a skill that's built on a foundation of mutual respect. And that's the crucial part. This isn't about being pushy or demanding. It's about finding that sweet spot where you can express yourself and stand up for your own needs while, and this is so important, still respecting the person you're talking to. And this comparison just nails the difference. On one end of the spectrum, you've got passive, where you're basically ignoring your own needs. On the total opposite end, you've got aggressive, where you're ignoring everyone else's. Assertiveness is that healthy, balanced middle ground. It's the sweet spot where you value yourself and others at the same time. And the payoff for getting this right? It's huge. I mean, being assertive isn't just about managing your schedule better, it fundamentally makes your life better. It boosts your self-esteem, it earns you respect from others, and it gives you the tools you need to manage stress and anger way more effectively. Okay, so if assertiveness is the skill, what's the tool we actually use? Well, that's where boundaries come in. Think of them as the practical way you apply assertiveness, like a protective framework you build around your life. This quote really gets to the heart of it. Boundaries aren't these giant walls you build to keep people out. They're more like a fence around your property. They protect your inner world, your time, your energy, your emotional health, and keep it from getting trampled on. To get really specific, personal boundaries are the limits you set that define what is and isn't acceptable behavior from other people. And when those limits are fuzzy or just not there at all, that's what leads directly to that relational stress we talked about earlier. You know, the conflict, the resentment, all of it. Okay, so we've covered the what and the why. Now for the really important part, the how. How do you actually communicate these boundaries effectively without starting a huge fight every time? Here are 4 absolutely crucial steps. First, you have to be clear and direct. Ambiguity is the enemy here. You can't just hint that you're uncomfortable. You have to actually state your limits to set clear expectations. Using I statements is a huge part of this, so let's look at a quick example. This technique is such a game changer. Just look at the difference. The first statement, you always. That's an accusation. It immediately puts the other person on the defensive. But the second one, the I statement, is about your feeling. And your feelings aren't up for debate. It's non-blaming, and it opens the door for a real conversation instead of just an argument. And you have to remember, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it, right? If you're saying no, but your body language is all apologetic and your tone is weak, your message is going to get completely lost. A firm, respectful tone and confident posture can make all the difference in making sure your words actually land. All right, let's be real for a second. Not everyone is going to be thrilled with your new boundaries. Some people are definitely going to push back. So this last section is all about how to navigate that potential conflict in a way that's actually constructive. Okay, this might be the toughest part of the whole process, but it is so important. The bottom line is this: if someone repeatedly ignores or violates a boundary you've set, there has to be a consequence. This isn't about punishing them, it's about reinforcing that your boundary is important and showing that you're serious about protecting your own well-being.
But when that conflict does pop up, it doesn't have to be a disaster. In fact, you can see it as an opportunity. Really listen to their side of things. See if there's a compromise you can make that doesn't sacrifice your core need. The goal isn't to win an argument, it's to solve the problem together. Believe it or not, this approach can actually make the relationship stronger in the long run. And one last thing to keep in mind: your boundaries aren't set in stone. They're alive, they're dynamic. What you need today might be totally different from what you need a year from now. It is perfectly okay to be flexible and to adjust your boundaries as you grow and as your life changes.
So, let's bring it all home. Why does all this matter? Because learning to set and communicate boundaries is the most direct path to reducing that stress and anger we started with. It builds real, genuine self-respect, and it leads to healthier, more authentic relationships where you can actually be yourself. This isn't just a small tweak. It's a skill that improves your entire quality of life. And that brings us to the end. I just want to leave you with this one powerful question to think about. Based on everything we've just talked about, what is one small, totally manageable boundary that you can set in your life, starting today? Thanks for joining me.